Here you've got guys who actually ran, Project Blue Book.
For this special episode of Spacing Out, we hit the road in our new production vehicle to cover the Military UFOs Secrets Revealed lecture at the National Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas.
I would say it was news fit to print.
We talked with the museum's curator.
Well, one of the things I wanted were people who were very serious about looking at the question of UFOs.
And with the individuals who presented at the event.
I think right now there's a gradual trend to releasing information enough to acclimate the public.
We also asked some of the special guests who attended the event for their reactions.
It shows great courage. It's an important scientific question, maybe the most important scientific question of our time.
Maureen and I also discussed some interesting videos that have generated interest recently, including a video showing an individual with teleportation powers. We talk about that and other space and UFO news right now on Spacing Out.
And you guys are great.
Greetings everyone and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Maureen Ellsbury, and clearly we are not in the studio today.
That's right. We're on location at the National Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada for a special lecture titled Military UFOs Secrets Revealed. And coming up in the show, we're going to talk with some of the people who are here today to reveal some of these secrets.
And this is cool because we actually have 4 colonels here today, as well as someone who worked for the Ministry of Defense's UFO desk in the UK.
Yeah, Nick Pope. It's going to be really exciting to hear what these people have to say. And there's a lot of buzz, a lot of hype that's been generated about this event and what might come out of it.
We heard some of that last night, actually. We had drinks with Lee Speigel from the Huffington Post, as well as Ben McGee, who you know from Chasing UFOs. So that was really fun, and everyone's really excited for today.
We're excited too. We'll get to that soon, but first, let's talk about what's in the news. Supposed security camera footage recorded in China on September 5th shows a person on a bike rescued by an unidentified hero who teleports the individual and the bike out of the way of an oncoming truck.
This video generated a mild buzz after it was uploaded to YouTube. Many viewers immediately postulated that the hero in this video was an extraterrestrial with superpowers. Others speculated that the video was a hoax manufactured by a creative CGI artist. But it appears this security camera footage belongs to a collection of marketing videos for a Chinese video game, Zhuzhan 2.
The security camera footage video is featured on a microsite for what appears to be a real-life representation of a character from the video game. She's referred to on the site as the Dragon Totem Girl. This illustrated version of this character is on the game's official website, and although many people are just discovering the presence of this video on the Dragon Totem Girl's website, some have already suggested the game's maker, Perfect World, is for some reason involved in a conspiracy to downplay this video and pass off what some assert is proof of a genuine superpowered extraterrestrial as nothing more than marketing material.
During the past few years, select governments around the world have released files to the public that relate to unidentified flying objects and/or extraterrestrials, and a new television show is investigating these files.
The show, titled Unsealed Alien Files, investigates recently released documents regarding alien and UFO encounters made accessible to the public in 2011 by the Freedom of Information Act. The show's website explains, each week, Unsealed Alien Files tackles one compelling alien case by opening these previously off-limit secret files. Based on the newly discovered information, the show re-examines key evidence and follows developing leads. A companion show, Unsealed Conspiracy Files, airs immediately following Unsealed Alien Files.
These shows will feature several experts, including Jim Penniston, John Burroughs, Jason Martell, John Greenwald Jr., and Lee Speigel. The shows are syndicated nationally in the United States by Tribune Broadcasting, but it doesn't appear to be on one single network. So you'll have to go to the show's website, unsealedalienfiles.com, to see if these shows are airing in your market, and if so, on what channel. These shows air on Saturday night or Sunday night, depending on your location, so check your local listings.
Gliese 163c has been added to the list of planets most likely to harbor life.
An international team of astronomers recently discovered Gliese 163c using the High Accuracy Radial Velocity Planet Searcher, or HARPS, at the European Southern Observatory's La Silla Observatory in Chile. Space.com explains that this newly discovered alien world lies at the edge of its star's habitable zone. That's just right range of distances where liquid water could exist.
Little is known about this newly discovered planet approximately 50 light years from Earth in the Dorado constellation. But the Planet Habitability Laboratory, the PHL, at the University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo catalogs potentially habitable worlds, and Gliese 163c ranks 5th on that list.
There were a couple of reports of glowing lights in the sky last week.
KTAR in Phoenix, Arizona posted a video showing strange lights in the Phoenix sky. 24-year-old photographer Tony Aguilera captured the lights on video and described the event, stating, "My neighbor came, knocked on my door, and was freaking out, saying something about UFOs. I walked out front and saw 2 orange orbs floating over the city. I didn't know what they were, but they were unlike anything I had ever seen before. They definitely weren't planes. I ran inside to grab my camera, but when I got back out, they had disappeared. My neighbor said she saw them go out like someone switched out the light. After a few minutes, she went back inside. I continued to look for them and saw them reappear in a different part of the sky, and that's when I started filming." Aguilera doesn't think the lights were military flares or Chinese lanterns.
Glowing lights were also recorded on video over Carteret County, North Carolina. News Channel 12 reports that these lights appeared over Otway, North Carolina on Tuesday, September 18th and Wednesday, September 19th. Witnesses described 6 orange glowing lights in the sky that rotated into a V shape, then slowly disappeared.
News Channel 12 contacted officials at a local military base who affirmed that military exercises were taking place that sometimes involve illuminated exercises with slow-moving flares that could appear to hover as they glide down.
Some local residents aren't buying the flare explanation, though, and are attributing the sightings to extraterrestrial life. So we had a couple interesting videos this week with lights in the sky.
Yeah, lights in the sky, and both of them sort of orangish lights in the sky. And we've mentioned before that, many times orangish lights in the sky that appear to flicker, that's a good sign for Chinese lanterns. In the case of the Phoenix video, that's most likely what the lights were.
And I know he doesn't think that they were, but if you see the film, like actual Chinese lanterns being filmed, what they actually look like, it's very similar patterns to what we're seeing here on this video.
Looks like the shape, it resembles the shape of a Chinese lantern, and you see flickering from the base where the fuel cell is on Chinese lanterns.
Right.
And we've mentioned before that we've tested Chinese lanterns ourselves and are familiar with the behavior that they do, and they can go out and come back if their flame flickers but then reignites. So that there is some interesting behavior that happens. Not saying that in this video 100% it was Chinese lanterns, but it's a good possibility.
Right, and we'll do one better. We're gonna actually test these out for our audience as
we
well
will
coming up here.
definitely test them for you so you guys can see what they actually look like. So we'll do that in the future.
And then this is interesting that we have this North Carolina sighting after, we reported on Joe Kiernan's South Carolina lights, and these seem to have similar patterns, whether they're rotating.
Similar patterns, some similar appearance, and we've been contacted by so many people reporting these sightings constantly in North Carolina, South Carolina, up and down the coast. And while some of the description and the appearance looks like military flares, based on witness testimony and some of the behavior these lights are doing by changing their formations, by going out and then coming back on in patterns as well, it's very interesting.
Carolinas are a hot spot.
It seems like it, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about strange lights in that area.
Right, okay, well, let's get on to this teleportation video.
Teleportation video, it's an interesting one, and it did, generate a lot of attention. And there are a lot of people who really do think that this is a genuine extraterrestrial captured on camera.
I mean, for me, when I saw it, I immediately thought it looks a lot similar to other viral marketing campaigns that people have done, and there's a lot of red flags that you pointed out, and I think we should highlight some of those, with the truck stopping automatically.
Yeah, the truck comes to, after he thinks he hits the person on the bicycle, he automatically comes to a stop. There's no skidding, it's just like the truck is stopped.
And I think what you pointed out, another great fact, is that this is a Chinese security camera footage, and the actual footage has English, like the marks from the camera are in English.
The camera, right, the date, time, and some of the language, the digital timestamps and things are in English. And I don't know if the Chinese is buying security cameras from the United States, but I think we buy a lot of ours from China, so it seems kind of weird that they wouldn't also use their own and go through the menu and select the right language. But that's odd to me, as well as security cameras in general. You're lucky if you're going to get really good, high quality footage to show smooth blurs and things like that.
Clear as day.
This was lots of red flags, but also a lot of, I think a lot of conspiracy you'd have to believe is going on here, that this video game company would get involved in trying to mask this as just a marketing effort when it's, I don't know,
well,
kind of fishy. I don't buy it, but I know some people do.
Well, we have the video on our site, so you can go check that out.
Yep.
So the National Atomic Testing Museum here in Las Vegas is a Smithsonian-sponsored museum, and in this March they just opened up the Area 51 exhibit.
The Smithsonian-affiliated National Atomic Testing Museum opened in 2005 and received its National Museum designation in January of 2012. The museum's Area 51 Myth or Reality exhibit has been a big hit since its opening in March of 2012.
Special events like this Military UFOs Secrets Revealed lecture are an important aspect of the museum's goal to stimulate conversation, and curator Karen Green plays a major role in facilitating these notable events.
Karen, it's great to talk to you again, and I want to congratulate you on putting together an exciting event. This is a really exciting event, and you put together some pretty phenomenal events, and I want to ask you, what's it like, the process that you go through to put something like this together?
Well, one of the things I wanted were people who were very serious about looking at the question of UFOs. And I wanted them to be very credible, so I always check on their backgrounds, etc. And I ask other people, you know, would you find this exciting? Would you want to know what these people have to say? And I really try to put together people who have never been together before when I do more than one person.
And how do you do that?
How do I do that? I don't know. It's somewhere in my head. Jason, you really want to know that?
You are very talented. I'm curious, and I think you've got your secrets there. But here at the museum with the Area 51 exhibit, you're doing some exciting things and you're trying to get people interested. I'm curious, what do you hope that people take away from an event like this Military UFO event?
I hope when people leave any of the lectures, but particularly tonight, I hope they seriously are questioning everything that they thought when they came in the door. And when they walk out the door, they're going, well, what questions do I need to ask now, and who do I ask them of?
So what do we have coming up in the future after this event's over here tonight?
Well, the very next one is on November 3rd, and that's Dr. Seth Shostak from SETI. And he's been with us again from the beginning of this journey. And I'm just really looking forward to, he's going to talk about the real extraterrestrials. Are they there? Are they here? And he's going to talk about what SETI does, but also, you know, what's the probability of us having a signal? Have they signaled us? All of that type of thing.
I'm curious to hear what feedback has been. I've asked you before about the feedback to the exhibit, the Area 51 exhibit, but I'm curious, with this event in particular, the Military UFO, what sort of response have you received from either the media or people calling to get information about it?
Well, you know, we've had a lot of people that go, are these people really going to be there? And we're going, yes, they're going to be here. So we have people that are surprised that we have brought them together. We have people that are going, oh, you know, you got the skeptics who are going, well, there aren't any military secrets. Military doesn't say they're UFOs. We already know the answers. So you have that kind of people, but some of them are going to show up. And then I think you have the people who just go UFOs and their mind closes, you know. So we have the whole spectrum here.
Well, Karen, we're really excited. We're big fans of yours and the museum. We think you're doing great things, very exciting things, and we're excited to see what you do next.
Well, I'm hoping that you come back again and again because I just love you people.
Well, with the lineup of speakers you keep getting, we're not going to stay away.
Great, great. We'll see you in November then, too.
Yeah.
Before the event commenced, we had a chance to speak with the evening's presenters. Retired United States Air Force Colonel Robert Friend is the former director of the Air Force's official investigation into UFOs, known as Project Blue Book. So during your time investigating UFO cases with Project Blue Book, did you come to form the opinion maybe that UFOs actually pose a security threat?
I came to the conclusion that they did not pose a security threat. That was the major objective of the Air Force, to either neutralize it if it was a threat, or to determine whether or not it was indeed a threat.
So you feel that the closing of Project Blue Book was correct in that there shouldn't be any necessity for an official organization to investigate sightings?
No, I don't believe that Blue Book per se, those activities should have been curtailed. It's just a matter of getting it into the right organization. I think that there was possibly a lot of scientific or technical pay dirt that could be available from these, knowing more about this phenomenon. For instance, signature data that goes into any of your defensive systems. You want to know what it is as soon as you can know about it. Well, the more things that you have already researched and determined do not cause a threat, then your system will not respond to it. And that's what you want. Because anytime you commit your defensive system, that's when you're most vulnerable.
So what do you think the best way to go about getting scientific information and getting the data on objects that aren't able to be identified? Do you think that's something that the Air Force should be responsible for?
Well, I don't believe that the Air Force should be responsible for it, but I do believe that a responsible technical agency should, maybe NASA and another within the Air Force, like Advanced Research Projects Agency.
Do you feel that some of these unidentified crafts, that there is a possibility that some could be of extraterrestrial origin?
I think that there's natural phenomena that is of extraterrestrial, but extraterrestrial doesn't suggest to me that there's life in it.
Nick Pope ran the British government's UFO desk at the Ministry of Defense from 1991 to 1994.
Nick, I want to ask you, I know the Ministry of Defense recently stopped taking reports of UFO sightings, basically because, correct me if I'm wrong, they determined that UFOs don't pose a security risk. And in your opinion, do they? Because there are things that we don't know what they are. We can't identify these things in the sky. So are things that we can't identify in the sky a security risk?
The Ministry of Defense has indeed axed its UFO project. But I have no doubt that, for example, if a pilot sees a UFO, if an air traffic controller sees something on the radar screen, that will still be looked at. It's just that this is going to happen outside of any formally constituted UFO program. And the other point is that it will be done by studiously avoiding using the phrase UFO. I've seen, for example, and I understand from contacts in the pilot community that people use phrases such as unusual aircraft and unconventional helicopter. But yeah, what's essentially happened is that the public reports are no longer required. Now, I think that's wrong. I think it's patronizing. It's clearly incorrect to suggest that no meaningful data could ever come from the public. Clearly, my own time on the UFO project tells me otherwise. But I see why they've done it. They were getting inundated with low quality reports, and they just wanted, I think, to focus in on pilots and radar operators and such like.
And clearly, yeah, like you said, about 95% of cases can be identified easily. There's that 5% that cannot. And out of those 5%, do you feel that some of those unidentified crafts could be extraterrestrial in origin?
I never say never. It's certainly not something that I and many colleagues ruled out. Neither, on the other hand, were we aware of any definitive proof that this was extraterrestrial. So it was a theory that was certainly put out there in relation to the 5% unknowns, but it was one of a number of different competing theories about what we were dealing with.
So you mentioned the manpower, the hours that are involved in taking sightings, the volume of sightings and dealing with that. So that creates a challenge. But do you think that with UFOs and the volume of sightings, that they should be investigated by an official government body?
Yes, they most definitely should be investigated. I think the way to get around the issue of many reports being low quality, the way to get around the problem of the obvious cranks who contacted us about this is simply to have a very strict filter process that instead of investigating each and every report with the same methodology, which was kind of the trap that we fell into, you know, there was a process for doing this, and you've got to follow that process. The best way is to just have somebody who is trained up as an investigator just give a really quick look at the material and frankly, put 95% of it straight in the bin. Now, if you do that, then you can concentrate your resources quite properly and sensibly on the small proportion of sightings that are of interest and potential significance.
So while you were running the UFO desk, what was one of those cases that you found super compelling that filtered through that 95% into the 5?
We had a case which has become known as the Cosford incident, involving a wave of sightings, in fact, from all around the country over a period of about 6 hours on the 30th and the 31st of March 1993. This was pretty much midway through my 3 years on the UFO project. And we had reports from a large number of different parts of the country, including numerous reports from police officers and military personnel. The 2 military bases that gave their name to the incident, well, one of them, Cosford, Royal Air Force Cosford and Royal Air Force Shawbury. At the first base, a patrol of military police officers saw a UFO fly directly over their heads. At the second base, a huge, dark, triangular-shaped craft flew over very slowly at a speed of maybe 40, 50 miles an hour before accelerating away rapidly to the horizon, many times faster than a military jet. And the witness who told me this, with his voice still shaking the following morning, had 8 years service in the Air Force. And so that was an extremely interesting and significant case.
Colonel Charles Halt is a retired United States Air Force colonel and was the deputy base commander of RAF Bentwaters in England during the famous Rendlesham Forest UFO incident that took place in December of 1980.
Colonel Halt, you being in a high-ranking position in the military, I'm curious, do you feel that unidentified craft pose a security threat, and do you feel that they should officially be investigated?
I definitely feel that they should be investigated, and they are being investigated, in my opinion. Just as being done very discreetly, I guess is the best way to put it. Do I think they're a threat? There's certainly the potential. I don't think to this point they've been a threat.
Do you think that there's a possibility that some UFOs are of extraterrestrial origin?
I've got mixed feelings on that. Either that or they're from another dimension. They're somewhere beyond our grasp, let's put it that way. I've had the feeling for a while the incident at Bentwaters is, and I know, not an isolated incident. I know of at least 20 or 30, maybe more incidents that have happened in that area. And some of the locals there that are almost accustomed to it think that there may be a portal, if you will, in that area from somewhere. They're going to say where? I don't know. Another dimension, another place. I have no idea.
Well, you know, with so much activity in that area, why do you think that there's not more attention put on it?
It's an isolated area. It's a very rural area. I don't think by attention you mean the British government or the British military. I think let me answer that a different way. The British have recently released in the last couple of years most all their cases. Interesting enough, though, they have nothing from the time period of 1980 when the incident I was involved in occurred. I find that interesting. But I'm convinced that they only released the reports. They didn't release any of the results of any of the investigations or any of the activities they did. I know they were actively involved in the Bentwaters case. At least one of the operatives that was involved in debriefing the 3 individuals that first made contact with hypnosis and sodium pentothal, they were British. Where's the report on that? What would you think if you had a son or daughter in the military and they were brought in and given hypnosis and sodium pentothal and they were never the same again?
Right.
Kind of scary, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Well, in terms of investigating UFOs, do you think that there should be an official body, an official organization that's responsible for doing that? And if so, should it be a government body?
I'm firmly convinced there is an agency that's doing that, and it is a government body.
Okay.
And they are fed information from various intelligence agencies, NSA, DIA, CIA, FBI, OSI, you name it. But those people aren't involved in evaluating the results. Those people gather the data, do the investigating, the legwork, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So do you think they're ever going to become public and
I think right now there's a gradual trend to releasing information enough to acclimate the public to the fact that there's something there. And I think there's a group, a small, very select group, highly compartmentalized, and there's a great deal about this.
All right, Colonel Halt, well, thank you so much for talking to us today. We
You're
really
quite
appreciate
welcome.
it. Former military insider, retired United States Army Colonel John Alexander served as Special Forces Commander in Vietnam and Thailand and was also involved in research and development.
Now, Colonel Alexander, during your time in the military and all your research you've done on unidentified objects, do you feel that these flying unidentified craft pose a security threat?
No. I do think there's been a few isolated incidents in which they're a major threat, but you know, by definition, the Department of Defense has looked at it and said this is not a threat. And if you go back 50 years, we haven't been invaded.
But aren't objects that we have no idea what they are, isn't that a threat?
No.
No?
Many things we don't know what they are. I mean, that's the nature of reality. So, you know, just because we don't know what it is. I think you've asked an important question, and this has to do with American culture. We treat everything as a threat. That's how we sell things. Be it, you know, toothpaste or soap or whatever. We create threats, so we're just used to that environment, and we've done that now with UFOs.
Right. So, do you feel that there should be any official investigation of unknown objects, or is that worthy of a government or just officially sponsored body?
Yeah, I would be in favor of that. However, I think the probability is going to be very low, given A, the national debt being what it is, and the competing issues that are out there being war, healthcare, poverty. You know, pick your issue. It's kind of hard to make UFOs fall into, you know, we're going to go spend public funds on it.
Right. Do you think that some unidentified object could be extraterrestrial in origin?
There are many possibilities, and that's certainly one of them.
Okay.
And that's the most popular one. I think whatever it is, it's probably more complex and not a single answer. I don't think one single solution is going to fit. If you look at the wide panoply of observations that have been reported.
Retired United States Air Force Colonel Bill Coleman, the former chief spokesman for Project Blue Book between 1961 and 1963, revealed an interesting explanation for a rumored UFO landing at Holloman Air Force Base.
It was an SR-71 or an A-12, I can't remember the time, that landed with trouble there. We had to confine people to the base because the airplane had not been surfaced, that is, had not been announced to the public. So we covered with canvas around it, got the airplane fixed, and took off.
And that's where the rumors of
That's
the
where
UFO landing?
The airplane had not been surfaced, that is, we had not made it public. We preferred to keep it that way, which we did. And finally, President Johnson announced it sometime later, but we were already operational with the aircraft.
And we got a chance to briefly chat with former FBI Special Agent Ben Hansen from Sci-Fi's television series Fact or Fake: Paranormal Files. Ben, I'm curious, is this your first time at the National Atomic Testing Museum?
Yes. I didn't know this existed until probably about, 4 or 5 months ago.
Did you actually tour the Area 51 exhibit?
Yes, the only part that I got to tour, they're closing up here and getting ready for this lecture, but I was able to run through that. It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
So for this specific event tonight, we're having all these military men discuss UFOs. Do you think that there's going to be any big breakthrough information launched?
No, I really don't expect anything big, but for those who are into this, you know, and for the uninitiated though, I always get the question, well, if this is a real thing and our government's really involved, I want to hear it from like military officials. And I usually tell them, well, look here, and I have a whole list of people. And so this is a great event for those who don't know that many people have gone on record, that many events have happened, and this is kind of like a great thing to do because most of these guys have like rankings of, at least a colonel, in the armed forces. And we've got Nick Pope from England, representing, and to have them all together at one time speaking on the same subject is really cool.
So do you think that, I know you've done a lot of investigating of weird things, and UFOs is one of them. And with the interesting things that are in the sky that can't be identified, do you think there should be an official organization to investigate unidentified flying objects?
You mean like a government-funded organization for us,
or some official body? I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be government.
Well, I guess there probably are official bodies. you've got several organizations that that's what they do full time. Officially investigate. Getting the government, our government, involved in it again, like in an official kind of Project Blue Book, I don't see that happening because they've been over that officially several times as to why they're not interested anymore. It would have to take something of great public concern before they got back into that business.
Right. So are you of the opinion that unidentified objects don't necessarily pose a security threat to us?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we've got several examples of situations like Malmstrom Air Force Base, where nukes have been shut down. The same thing happened in Russia, and near misses, the Red Scare over Washington, D.C., in the 50s. So we've got plenty of examples of reasons we should be taking this more seriously.
There have been a lot of government files released. The UK and different governments around the world have released files related to UFOs and their study into UFOs. The FBI's released files. So I know you have a background with the FBI. Do you believe that all the files have been released, or you think good stuff has been held back?
Oh yeah, by a long shot, no. A lot of these things, Project Blue Book, for example, was sanitized. The best reports, as we know from people who directed it and worked on Blue Book, they knew that the most concerning reports of national security went over their head, to separate divisions within the Air Force, and that was necessary. I think Blue Book served a purpose to let the public know something was being done about it, but the bulk of the real, I guess, most interesting files, I would assume, are still classified. Otherwise, we would know the whole picture by now.
Hansen is waiting to hear if Fact or Faked will be picked up for a 4th season, but in the meantime, he's been busy.
I do a lot of lecturing. I travel around doing different events. We do sky watching events, we do ghost hunting events. And I also got into TV producing. I wasn't on the production side before, so I have a couple shows in development at the moment.
I've noticed online postings about the sky watches you've been doing. How many have you done, and how have those gone so far?
We're just starting out. We really have, I think we've just done one.
Nice, nice.
But we did one in San Diego.
I've definitely heard about it, so the press is good.
That's good. We did one in San Diego. We're looking at doing another one here in Vegas, actually, in the next couple of months. Possibly Utah, and then going maybe up the coast in California. And it's really cool because we partnered with like Bushnell Night Optics, and they have their Generation 3 night vision stuff that they lend us, and they come out, and we have all this really high-tech gear set up for people. They don't have to go and buy it because it gets kind of expensive. They can just use ours, and we do lectures that go along with it.
That's awesome. I want to go on one now. And
you should.
Arizona.
We'll come out there.
You should come and do it at the Congress.
We should.
Yes.
We should actually.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yes. February. What's the exact date?
The conference starts the 27th, February 27th, Wednesday. Goes through the 3rd.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
We'll talk more about that. All right. Thanks so much, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
The lobby of the museum was transformed to set the stage for this special event, and although we weren't permitted to film any of the presentations, the museum was generous enough to provide us with some highlight footage.
If anyone was to ask me, is a UFO real? As I already stated, they are certainly real. They're real because they're things that people have experienced. They're real because we've been able to, in many instances, track down exactly what the cause was. But there is a small percent that we have not yet been able to solve. And
I've heard many people say it's time that the government appoint an agency to investigate this. Folks, there's an agency, very close held, compartmentalized agency that's been investigating this for years. They get their sources from NSA, DIA, CIA, Air Force Intelligence, Army Intelligence, FBI, you name it. You hear about reports getting released. Have you ever heard the results of any of the investigations?
But then it started a very fast, sudden descent. All we saw literally was a bright silver object. And we started catching up on it. I'm at about 8,500 feet, so finally it hit 8,500 feet, and I'm starting down with it. And so we watched it and went down to the ground. I got close enough now. I said, that does not have a tail and it does not have wings. Okay, guys, don't discuss it. Pay close attention. I want your personal opinion, what you're looking at.
The meteorological officer at RAF Shortbury saw a huge triangular craft move slowly over his head at a height of about 200 feet. Low frequency humming sound, which he said he could feel as well as hear. Pencil thin beam of light shining down at the ground, tracking backwards and forwards as if it was looking for something. This craft moved at a speed of about 40 or 50 miles an hour, very slowly over the base, then accelerated away to the horizon, as he put it, many times faster than a military jet.
And this is a case where they're flying along at night. Multiple witness cases because they have 6, counting him, naval flight officers on board on the test, and all of a sudden this thing is again off and moves across them, contacted all the various radars in the Pensacola area. Nobody's got it out there, stayed with them for about 5 minutes, and then again went shooting off.
Following the lecture, we asked some of the special guests in attendance to share their reactions to the event with us. With journalist George Knapp. George, it's good to see you again, and I just want to get your quick opinion on what you thought of the event tonight.
Well, it's tremendous. I applaud the museum for doing it. As you heard from some of the audience members, there are people who don't think that a museum, especially one affiliated with the Smithsonian, should be anywhere near this topic, and I think just the contrary is true. It shows great courage. It's an important scientific question, maybe the most important scientific question of our time, and if you can't tackle it at a museum or a library or university, where can you tackle it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you've been really encouraging with this museum and participating in what they're trying to accomplish here, and I think that's terrific on your part. But they're doing other events here, and what are your thoughts on the future events they have planned here? I know you did one, but do you view this location as a good place to be presenting this topic?
It's a great place and a great platform for these kinds of issues and questions. As you know, in this field, there is a lot of wacky stuff, and there are a lot of people who are completely non-credible. They've been able to find very credible people, especially this panel tonight. Their previous programs have been with fairly credible people, myself excluded probably. But you know, you have to be careful in who you choose to invite to be your speakers, and which kinds of topics in this general big crazy subject that you take on. But I think so far they've shown really good judgment, and I sure hope they continue. I mean, the fact is a museum has to get people in the door to keep its doors open, and this is a great topic for doing that, because the public, whether the debunkers like it or not, the public has an ongoing interest in it. It doesn't go away. It might wane from year to year, but it's been going on for 50 years of my life, and for maybe a lot longer, and it's an honorable pursuit. It's an honorable thing to tackle this question. Could be the biggest question in all humanity.
Ben, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the event tonight.
Well, generally, I thought the event was impressive. It was legitimate. It took a very clinical approach, and a lot of it was historical. So I think I was impressed with a friend's account of their approach for Project Blue Book, which was very dry. It was non-sensational, and you know, everyone. I was pleased that it didn't drift into speculation. They kept it to the facts, and it was a very educational, historical event. I liked the panel. It was good.
I think it was a lot of fun. It's kind of historic in that the two Blue Book guys, Coleman and Friend, they're 90 years old. They're not going to be around too much longer. This may be the last public event they do on UFOs. So that makes it really historic. I don't know that we necessarily learned anything new tonight, especially for us researchers, but I think for the general public, you know, who don't know of these guys and their work, they have learned something new, and it's kind of refreshing and given an inner look into Blue Book.
I think that the real positive benefit of all this is you have a Smithsonian affiliated museum, and these guys have done the circuit. They've gone around and talked before, but here you have them all together, and for those who are kind of uninitiated into ufology, who didn't know that there's so many, you know, military officials who are out speaking about this, I think it was really cool to have them together and for the public to see that.
So what was the one piece of information maybe that you found the most interesting of the new things you heard today?
Well, there's a couple things. Nick Pope kind of talking more about the inside of what the MOD was doing in their kind of PR efforts. And then I also liked hearing like Bill Coleman's personal story, you know, of chasing the UFO around, you know, and I think it was a B-52 that he was flying. So I like those personal stories because here you've got guys who actually ran, you know, Project Blue Book, and to hear it from them, kind of the daily what it was like was really interesting.
I was especially happy that Colonel Charles Halt decided to say that he thought that there was still an ongoing investigation and that there's an agency. That's the kind of stuff I came here looking for. I was a little disappointed with Colonel Bill Coleman's revelation, which was not really kind of a revelation. And now I feel like a little embarrassed because I told my readers, my Huffington Post readers, that there was going to be some big revelations, especially from him. And now I'm going to write up the story and say, well, the revelation wasn't what I expected, but we got other good stuff from the other speakers here. I thought Nick Pope was really good, and I thought John Alexander was excellent. I like the story that Bill Coleman talks about, his riveting 1955 UFO encounter. That's a really great story. But then when it came to revealing something, I didn't hear it.
Without that being present, do you still think that an event like this is a worthwhile event, and do you see it having a benefit?
It's only a worthwhile event if more media like you guys cover it, just to get the word out. Because if the media doesn't show up and doesn't show any interest, then the public's not going to know about it, and who cares? You know, we have to show we have to show some degree of expectation from the media. Most of the criticism about media and UFOs is that they either don't care about it or it's taboo, as the New York Times likes to call themselves, all the news that's fit to print. Well, is the New York Times here tonight? No. So does that mean this was not news that was fit to print? I would say it was news fit to print.
Oh, I thought it was terrific for various reasons. First, anytime you have a mainstream institution dealing with the subject as a real phenomenon, that's already a big achievement. But secondly, I thought that the commentary, particularly by Colonel Halt, was a bombshell. I mean, I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be an interesting event, but much more conservative, where people were going to say, yeah, well, yeah, there's some UFOs are real, but most are not. No, it was pretty punchy, the whole event. But especially Colonel Halt's statement, I thought it was very, very strong.
It wasn't the bombshell secret we were expecting, but it definitely was interesting.
Well, because it raises the question, right? I mean, if the government has collected all this information, which we know from the government's own documents through the Freedom of Information Act and the witness testimony, etc., then they close shop, which is basically Colonel Alexander's thesis. Then what happened? You know, why? If they have some evidence that this is real, but what Halt is saying makes perfect sense. It is still an agency, but it is not even from the government. It's a subcontract, so it's a private agency. That way it's not subject to Freedom of Information Act. Because, by the way, I had a private conversation with Halt before the event where he told me this, but I thought that maybe he was telling me this off the record. And then so I wasn't sure if I could really quote him in articles and things like that. And then he goes and he spells the whole thing.
Retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Dick French was in the audience for this event. French made headlines in mid-2012 when Open Minds published a video interview in which French claims that he was ordered to debunk UFO sightings.
French's recent comments have met with strong skepticism by some, including John Alexander. It was interesting to see both French and Alexander in the same room. And from what we were told, some heated discussion took place during an encounter between the two.
Our colleague Antonio Huneeus had a chance to speak with both French and Alexander.
We had some very interesting war stories that do match. We were overlapped in Thailand at the same time. Stuff from Vietnam fits, but the stories on UFOs and particularly the pulse power one, the shooting down of a UFO in 1947 exceeded the capability that we had in the 1980s. And I know I used to run the directed energy programs for the Army. I had all of them under my command, and it was we couldn't have done that in mid-1980s. So to assert that it happened in 47
But
is a problem. I started this at the age of 22. I'm 82. That's a long time ago. And I didn't do it out of curiosity. I did it because I was directed to do it. I was in the Office of Special Investigations. As an agent, I was required to do it. And I've been criticized for being a debunker. Well, damn right I'm a debunker.
At the time, right.
Because that's what I was ordered to do. So I was simply a military officer following orders.
Right.
And I've had people question me. They said, well, do you believe in UFOs? Well, I certainly do. But whether I believed in them or not wouldn't make any difference. I'd still have to do the same thing.
Overall, the Military UFOs Secrets Revealed special lecture was a great event. Although no bombshell secrets were really revealed, this gathering was historic.
Colonel Coleman's story of pursuing a UFO in a B-25 bomber was interesting, and it was also interesting to hear just how vocal Colonel Halt is becoming with his belief that a secret government agency is covering up UFOs.
The museum was very gracious for having us at the event, and we'll hopefully have the opportunity to cover more events like this because we now have an awesome production band that makes it easier to pack up our gear and hit the road. That's all for this episode of Spacing Out. Be sure to visit openminds.tv for all the latest news. And join us again next week for a show that I am so excited for. We're going to talk with science fiction author Alan Dean Foster.
Thanks for joining us for our Military UFO special. Don't forget to go to the National Atomic Testing Museum's website because they are selling DVD presentations of the event we just saw. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like it on YouTube and leave us your comments. I am Maureen Ellsbury.
And I'm Jason McClellan. We will see you in the future.